Hello everyone, it's Paul from This Design That, and welcome to the first episode in the series where I take you through the process of designing, printing and producing a piece of artwork. This artwork is going to be used in an upcoming release that is coming out on one of my own labels. So I'm sure many of you don't know, but I run a music YouTube channel called Drift Deeper, and I also run two labels that are attached to that. And they are Drift Deeper Recordings and also Natural Expressions. So this artwork is going to be for a cassette release that is coming out on Natural Expressions. The first release that we put out was in 2017, and the second release has been delayed by a huge amount because I've gone through the process of moving house and trying to get this print studio up and running in my spare room. And thankfully it is now at the stage where I can actually start making some artwork. So the first release was this artwork that you can see here. This was screen printed. I did this at university for one of my projects actually. I was pretty lucky. It's like 11 layers and it's no halftones, it's all hand blended gradients. It took me absolutely forever to print it, but I really do love how it come out. It does look really, really nice. The colours are just amazing from doing it with screen printing. And I'm going to be doing something similar. What I did on the first release is that I printed this on A2 and then I did random crops. So each cassette case had like a random crop of the artwork. So each one was unique. And I did like that because the whole idea of doing these music releases is that, you know, they're limited edition, they're unique. I just want to kind of give as much reason as possible for someone to actually buy the music. Hopefully that uniqueness that every single one is different will hopefully help with that. And if you would like to listen to the music, you can head over to my other channel, Drift Deeper. We've got a 24/7 stream of deep electronic music. It's mostly dub techno and ambient music. If you've never heard of this type of genre before, you might be pleasantly surprised. A lot of people find it kind of very relaxing and meditative. So head over there and you can listen to it if you want to. So I think as a designer, it's really, really important to have these kind of passion projects, these side projects away from your commercial work that you do with clients. I talked about it in a recent video where I did a 1 year recap of being a freelancer. You can check it out in the card at the top. And this is one of the reasons why I set up Natural Expressions, which is kind of the second music label that I set up, and it was specifically for physical releases only. So the music is only released on cassette, and hopefully in the future we'll also do vinyl. And really it just gives me an opportunity to kind of explore print techniques that I fell in love with while I was at university and that I don't get to use in everyday life as a designer. You know, most of my time is spent on the computer. You know, you hear a lot of people getting burnt out, they get in a creative rut because they're just stuck in front of a computer. And I find that being able to do these kind of things, use kind of analog print techniques, doing screen printing, hope to be doing etchings and lino as well. Anything really that is kind of using my hands and stepping away from the computer. I hope to explore with this second label that I've set up. So in this series, we're going to start doing some just rough experimentation on the computer. We are still going to be using the computer. It's not going to be completely analog. I'm going to do some sketches and just try to work out some images that I might want to start exploring a little bit further. I've talked to the artist. He's given me some rough ideas of maybe what he wants to see. So we'll throw together some ideas and see what we get, and then we'll work from there. Okay, so here we are in Illustrator. Sometimes I like to do this on pen and paper. Sometimes I like to just go straight into Illustrator. It will really depend on what I'm trying to create. I find a lot of my stuff is actually quite minimal and geometric, and I find it easier to actually to sketch in Illustrator because you can easily draw geometric shapes. I find it hard to extract what is in my mind onto paper because I'm not very good at drawing. But sometimes I do like to sketch. It depends if you can go somewhere. If it's nice outside, I like to sit out in the garden and sketch. Anyway, talking to the artist, this album was about experiencing different things in his life. Not all of them were good, and it was about kind of battling the bad thoughts and seeing light at the end of the tunnel and coming out of it at the other end for the better. So I was kind of doing some quick kind of notes on how I would show that maybe visually. Obviously gradients come into it, obviously the light to the dark, moving through a tunnel, the perspective of a tunnel as well. I guess what I'm trying to show here, this was the intentions of this sketch, was that you've got the flow of life, which are these lines, and you've got the circle, which is the person, and it's kind of how these things in life, they get thrown at you, but if you can move through it, you'll come out the other end and you'll be stronger for it. So I'm trying to show kind of some sort of movement, moving through this kind of passage of life. You can see as the lines that they turn white when they interact with the human, just like how real life, it interacts with you, and it can influence the way that you think and feel things. So this is what I'm trying to show, and obviously you get to the other end and who knows what it is. Hopefully it's a better place. But yeah, this is what I'm trying to show with these kind of very kind of abstract sketches. So then we moved on to passage through something, your perspective of something, how maybe something can feel so big, but if you take a step out, it's not so big. You can come out the other end of it. Yeah, I don't really know. I'm just trying to sketch things and just trying to see how things work. I was kind of playing with perspective here, and how you can maybe create a bit of artwork that was in the shape of maybe a tunnel, and how it would maybe distort things, but I didn't really like where this was going. So I was just playing with gradients and shapes really. So next I moved on to, I did this in Photoshop again. This is just kind of playing with the contrast between black and white, obviously the positive thoughts, the negative thoughts, and also just playing with layering, just to kind of give that perspective and that kind of adding a little bit more of a 3D effect to it, so it feels like you're maybe looking through something or looking down on something. And that was the idea with this. I wasn't really liking how this was looking, and then I started to look at, again, very, very abstract, and just concentrating on kind of this light and dark, how things could appear like they're coming out from somewhere. Just lots of kind of like random sketches. I quite like some of these. Maybe I'll test them, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I quite like them. They look pretty cool, but I'm not too sure at the moment. So then I started to make it a little bit more simpler, moving away from the ones that we was just doing, these kind of ones that, quite heavy. I wanted maybe something a little bit more simpler. So I decided to do something like this again, just kind of showing gradients, the light to the dark, and then obviously trying to add some sort of movement to it with these kind of lines cutting through it. And again, those are all different type of gradients, just trying to show the difference in kind of life and the passage that you go through, and how things don't always turn out the way that you want them to. Yeah, and I tried to maybe give it a little bit more perspective, because the flat look of it, I didn't really feel like it maybe communicated so much as movement through something. So yeah, I mean, I quite like these kind of off-shape ones. We've also got the flat ones, so I'm not too sure what these will look like, but I think I'm gonna do something like this. I was kind of thinking as well that we could do kind of like different blends of the gradients, and maybe print it all in one, just as halftones. I'm not too sure what it's going to be like trying to do all of this by hand, but maybe some of these could be foiled as well to kind of add a little bit of texture. I just want to start making now and just see how all of this kind of comes out. So let's go ahead and get our hands dirty. Okay, all I'm doing here is just really quickly kind of plotting out roughly the shape that I've got in Photoshop using masking tape. I'm just going to kind of blend some black and some metallic silver together, just to get kind of like a rough gradient. I really just want to kind of see how this metallic ink is going to come out. So just pull off the masking tape. It actually rips the paper annoyingly, but I managed to get kind of the rough shape that I wanted, and then it was just time to lay down the adhesive size. And again, I'm just using the masking tape to kind of mask out the shape that I want. And this adhesive size, it stays sticky for up to like 24 hours. I don't think it really does ever actually dry. It's really good because it just allows you to take your time and you can lay it down. Right, just let it dry for just like 10 minutes. And then I'm just trying to carefully remove the masking tape. You can see that it does an okay job. We just ripped the paper there. This masking tape isn't really good. But, I've been able to get out a rough shape of what I want it to look like. And then we just do the top one. This is actually a thinner strip, so I was surprised that this actually came out at all, really. As you can see, we've just done a test print. I've got it up here. It's really nice just to get something up on the wall that I can take a look at. I find that with these kind of processes, it's nice just to get printing. There's only so much you can replicate on a computer screen. The way that the ink interacts with the different types of paper. Also, special inks like metallic inks, for instance, you can't really recreate that on a computer. So it's really good just to put something up on the wall. I always just like to get making as quickly as possible. Now, I did decide to actually print one of these designs because I just wanted to see what it would look like. I wanted to test my setup more than anything. I laid down a layer of metallic ink and then I put the halftone blacks over the top of it, and it is a bit too heavy. You can't really see any of the metallic inks. So I did think it was going to be a little bit too heavy when I was designing it on the computer, but I just wanted to test it because I thought it would look pretty cool if the metallics did shine through, and they don't. So I know that I can scrap that, and I would have only have really been able to kind of confirm that by printing it. So it just goes to show, just get making, just get printing, and you'll start to figure things out, and it will influence your process. It will influence your designs as well. Moving on to the actual print now. I really like how this has come out. The metallic inks have come out much better when I've hand blended the gradient, which you saw in the video, as opposed to using halftones. So I think I'm going to go with blending the gradients myself. I haven't done any of the lines yet. I'm still not sure what to do, whether to use halftones or to hand blend it. It's going to be a very long process because obviously, you only get so many prints when you are blending colours. Typically it takes maybe 4 or 5 prints for the inks to start blending together, and then you might get 10 or 20 prints out of it where the colour gradient is kind of the same, and then it just starts to blend too much and it just comes one solid colour. So doing these hand blends of inks with screen printing, it is pretty time consuming, but you do get really, really nice results. And also, every single one is unique, which kind of goes into what we was talking about previously. Every single time that you print and the inks blend, the colour does change a tiny bit. And again, so it just makes every single print a little bit more unique. Now this is really, really rough. You can see the way I was doing it with masking tape. I think that when I'm on the computer screen and I'm doing it in Photoshop where I'm drawing a rectangle and then I'm 3D distorting it and I'm turning it at a perspective, it's kind of making sense to me because I'm going through the process of adding perspective to something. But when I've just got it up on the wall and I'm just looking at it, I'm not too sure that I get the sense of perspective that I do when I'm doing it in Photoshop. I think I'm going to test print the rectangle, just a flat rectangle design as well. I want to see how that's going to look because I'm not really liking this. It just kind of feels like a bit of an odd shape. Now, as you can see, we've also tested the foil. I think you can see it kind of like reflecting against the light there. I really do love using foil. I used it on my final year process book at university. I did a hot foil cover. I think it just looks really, really cool. You know, you don't really see it very often being used because it is a very expensive and people don't have the machinery around to do it. Now, I am thinking about investing in a hot foil machine. I've been thinking about it for a long time because I really do love to use foil. You know, it really does add another kind of level to your designs, and you can get some really cool effects and some textures. They are very, very expensive. You're looking at £400-500 plus delivery. The things weigh an absolute ton, so you know it's going to be an expensive courier job to get it delivered. But I'm still thinking about it. I would really, really love to do hot foiling with this. The masking tape, while it was very rough, as you can see in the video, it's come out okay, but you know, maybe I could fine tune it a little bit, maybe get it a little bit more cleaner, but it's not going to be nowhere near as crisp as a hot foil machine as like an actual stamp. Also, you get the debossed effect on it as well, which again, just it adds a little bit more depth and texture to the prints. So next we're going to go ahead and expose a new screen. We're going to put the flat rectangle design on it, and we'll go ahead and print that. So feel free to skip this part if you're not interested in seeing the process of screen printing. I'm just filling up the emulsion here. And we're just going to coat the screen. We're going to do it on both sides. Always make sure that you wipe around the edges to make sure you don't get any build-up of emulsion, because it can just be a little bit harder to get off when you are reclaiming the screens. And always make sure that you get everything out of the holder. I'm just printing here on my A1. This is a new printer that I've managed to get really cheap off eBay. I'm just lining up the positives just to make sure that the registration is good. So I've split the image into 2 layers just for this test print. And I can fit both layers on one screen, which is pretty handy. So we're just sticking it down. And this is my DIY setup. I'm gonna try and fix it up a little bit better, but it does a really good job. It's a 200 watt LED, UV LED with a heatsink, and it does a really, really good job. So just washing it out, and then we're just spotting, just kind of covering up the edges and any tiny little holes that you get. So it's just good to be careful here. Just make sure you do pick up all the little holes, because when you are printing it will come through. So now just mixing up the colours. I'm just going to make a dark metallic silver with just some black added to it, and then just normal metallic silver. And as you can see, the first few gradients, they're not really blended that well, but as I said, you know, the more and more you print, the more it does blend. So as you can see, it's quite a contrast to start off with, but it will just gradually start to blend. So once I've done, I did about 10 prints with that. It was then time to move on to the other layers. Now I decided to print just all white, just to kind of cover up, just to make sure that the gradients that go over the print would be able to be seen. So I thought I'd do a layer of white first of all. Now for this bit, I wanted to see if I could do it all in one go instead of doing each of these lines independently as a gradient. I just wanted to see if I could just mix a load of different gradients together and then just print it and see if it would make it look like each one is different. So in the next video, we're gonna review the new test prints and we'll see how they come out. And then we'll start to explore how exactly we're gonna do the lines across the artwork. And then we will finally decide whether it is actually an artwork that we want to use and kind of how it's going to look. We'll start experimenting with different crops for the actual cassette covers, and then we'll finally actually make a cassette cover with all of the text that's going to go on it as well. So stay tuned for more episodes, but that is it for now. I'll end it there.